We are on to our next speaker. Her name is Nikki Green. And everyone who knows Nikki Green goes, oh my goodness, you're going to have Nikki Green on. So, hey, Nikki, you're a bit of a star.
Well, tough act to follow with Marie and you being up all day and night doing this whole, summit. So I'll do my best to keep everybody entertained.
Looking forward to it. Anyone who has her name is thenickygreen.com, not just any Nikki Green, thenickygreen.com, is definitely a woman who owns her presence. She is a life and business resilience expert, has been in the international business industry for over 20 years, so much wealth of experience there. She's 4 times published author. She also loves to travel, so do I. She's visited more than 14 countries, all over the States. She's also sporty. She's done 7 marathons, 3 ultra marathons, and stacks and stacks and stacks of triathlons across 3 continents. So you are a fun-loving woman. She's also been featured in USA Today, Podcast Magazine, Authority Magazine. Oh my goodness, her presence is all over the place, and I'm going to leave you with Nikki now. So welcome, Nikki.
I didn't realize I got the memo. I was like, what's Annie wearing today? It's a red day, so we need to be bright and colorful today.
Day. We're bright, we're vibrant, we're just owning our red. Yes, red's fun. It's fun. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. And you're very presidential with your backdrop there. I'm liking that too.
I get that a lot, actually. We've been looking to see if we can get some changes so we can see if people are paying attention, and we'll put some, I don't know, Easter eggs, surprises.
Something we're going to find there. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your background. I've given you the amazingness of Nikki Green. So tell me now, tell us all about a little bit about, how did you get started in the whole area of e-commerce?
Yeah, so I've actually been working in Silicon Valley for the last 20 years. Like many people, left during the pandemic to go off and be an entrepreneur. But my time in Silicon Valley taught me a lot. I was at the very beginning of e-commerce, and one of my first jobs, I worked at Cisco Systems and basically built the internet. So, helping that we were installing all of the backbone, servers, routers, and all those exciting things behind the scenes to make sure that we could have the amazing features of the internet that we have today. So it was really cool to just see it grow and evolve over years and through the different companies that I worked with over that time.
Amazing. Amazing. Have you ever heard met someone who was actually in the foundational stages of building the internet? Oh my goodness, your knowledge must be absolutely incredible. And I know you've worked with companies like PayPal or whatever. So it's like, oh my goodness, talk about an e-commerce expert. Incredible. I don't even know where to start. So how do you use e-commerce then in what you do to reach and engage customers? And what platforms and channels do you find the most effective?
Yeah, like most people, that transition from, corporate job to entrepreneur is always a little bit tough. It's just so many things to learn and it's so easy to get overwhelmed. But lucky for me, e-commerce was definitely something I already had dipped my toes in the water several times. While I was working at PayPal, I worked with lots of different customers, helping them optimize their shopping carts on their websites so that they made sure that if they had abandoned carts, if people weren't buying certain products, pricing optimization, all of those elements of the e-commerce space, I was able to learn and then adapt it into my business. And so now I know exactly what people are looking at, how long they're there. If they start to buy something and then they change their mind, I can start, a nurture sequence to be like, hey, I saw you like this, but you didn't get it. Why? How can I help you? And it's amazing how much those other parts of it's not just put up the website and set it and forget it. You have to actually make sure that you're continuing to engage just as if they were walking into a physical store, that you were working with, regularly.
Yeah, it is like that, isn't it? It's a conversation. It's like, how can I help you? Or you seem to have got, they've been browsing for a while and then they got distracted because they met a friend and suddenly walked out or something. It is a bit like that, isn't it? It's like, you seem to have left your card here. How can I help you? Do you find that is there a real art in being able to craft those messages though? Or is there a bit of a formula that for those of us are in business that there should be a set pattern of communications and how many of them should there be for any sort of one sale, if you like?
Yeah, that's definitely the careful balance of annoying to, persistent,
Yeah.
because that's how we want to be. And part of that is your personality and your business. What is it that you're selling? If you're selling, candles and, a lot of smaller good things, then people are probably going to quickly buy from you and then maybe not have that brand loyalty. But if you're selling a high ticket item like what Marie does, you're going to want to really nurture that person. And especially if they're a great client and you want to keep them, make sure that they're coming back year after year for those things. And so that's the balance of making sure you understand what level of engagement is necessary. And a lot of times it's related to price level and the type of thing. Is it just a thing that they can go buy and do themselves? Or is it really a service that they need to understand how you're going to perform that service, referrals from other people and, kind of getting that next level of trust from them.
Oh, that's such a good point to think about, because that's right. If I was in, from a medical perspective, you want your annual reminders for something. It's a good opportunity to have a touch point, and therefore it should be organized. But other times it's like, you don't want that person to unsubscribe, right? So there's got to be a fine line with the way you communicate, not being harassing and also appropriate for each business. Is there a lot that you've learned from your Silicon Valley experience of what basically makes someone shut off and unsubscribe? The unsubscribe must be the disaster. It's like, oh my gosh, because it's so hard to nurture that customer to sale, and then suddenly that you lose communication with that person.
Yeah, and it's making sure that you're nurturing. When I don't love, email newsletters. I've had to do them most of my career. And even like mandatory legal notices, which really nobody wants, and you can't unsubscribe from those ones.
Can I unsubscribe from that? Yeah.
Yeah. And so what I try to do with my business is really edutainment. So I have a podcast. A lot of times I'm at events. Sometimes I'm doing silly dances on TikTok. Who knows what kind of those mix of things is, but I'm not constantly trying to sell and push my products and services every single time. The majority of my emails are going to be, hey, here's a free podcast where we talk about this topic. If it's interesting to you, go listen. Hey, I'm going to be at this city at this event. If you happen to live at the city, come to the event. Not a hard push on the sale, really kind of balancing those things together. And I think that's where a lot of people fail, is they're just trying to push and sell all the time. And then people get really turned off. And so, trying to get back to, hey, how can I just give you some value through this email?
Oh, I love that. It's actually just showing that you're just showing up and doing your business. And if they want to be part of that and it adds value, then join along. If it doesn't, then it's still just a touch point of, oh, that's interesting what Nikki's doing. She's having a great life. But that's right. It's non-threatening, isn't it? It makes people feel more comfortable. So for you to actually use the word optimize before, I'd love you to just give a bit more depth for those people who aren't as sort of aware of what that actually means when you're sending those, on your website from your communications. What does it mean to optimize it?
Yeah, it's and this depends on how often and how frequently you need to turn over customers. If you have simple services that it's sort of one and done, and maybe they need to come back to you once a month, once a quarter, then your level of optimization is going to be quite different. For me, I constantly have ongoing projects happening, and I want engagement from people. I want people to watch, my videos on YouTube. I want them to possibly be guests on my podcast and know the topics of things that I'm looking for. I want JV partners to help support my business, or maybe I'm looking to support other people's business in a specific area. So it's really making sure you have a clean strategy of, what am I trying to do here? And then monitoring as that communication goes out, did I get the impact I was looking for? Because if you didn't, you need to keep adjusting. And that's where I think a lot of people, oh, well, I just made 6 months worth of email posts and set it and forget it again. And it goes back to the store. You're in the store. Think about having a real conversation with a real customer, and just not, hey, take this sweater and walk out, but how can we really talk and make sure that I'm getting you the things you need, so you don't just come back to buy now, but you keep coming back over and over again.
Exactly. We won't want that lifelong customer for sure. So you mentioned a couple of platforms that you enjoy using, though. Are there specific platforms and channels that you have found the most effective? Is it generic, or is it very much like we were talking before with Deb? Actually, it's kind of like, if your peeps aren't on TikTok, don't be on TikTok, like be where they are. How have you found those choices, and have you noticed different ones in different industries that you've worked with to actually make sure that we get that reach that we're wanting and that right connection with our customer?
Yeah, and there's so many different audiences per, tool, and is it the right tool for the people you're working with? Because I'm so comfortable with technology, I often switch technology quickly as well. And so I may integrate new things into the business as new tools become available. With things like ChatGPT and AI, things are advancing very, very rapidly. But you have to be careful. If you're not tech savvy, that's not something you want to do, because you're going to end up disrupting your whole business. But for my LMS platform, for my online course, I use Experienceify. So that's a different avenue for how I'm going to market that, but that's a higher ticket item than my book. My book is, $25. I sell it on Amazon, I sell it in local bookstores, and it goes in libraries. And so you're making sure that you're using the right tool for the thing that you're trying to sell. And again, the price points that you're trying to reach. But then you tie it all together with that social media and email marketing to make sure it's transparent to the customer. The customer doesn't care what tools you're using or what's going on, right? They're like, okay, cool, I like the book and I would like to join the course. Okay, make it seamless for them to be able to do those things. Click and you're over and you're doing the thing you need to do next.
And I think that's the secret, isn't it? It's actually having that combined experience, that consistent experience as well. So if you're using multiple platforms, because I do that as well, I've got my coaching platform, then my website, and then I use a variety of socials. So it's just that the customer is actually saying, oh, well, it just feels the same everywhere. And also, that's right, if you're on your coaching platform and then someone wants your book, you've got to be able to have it as an upsell from that one. You can't expect them to go and do this massive, it's kind of like go for another drive over here. They're not going to do it. You want to get them at you want to narrow that time from that thought to purchase, right? So it is an art. It is an art, and it's I think a lot of us have different channels for different reasons, particularly even multiple websites, and it can be a real challenge to actually get them all sort of interconnected in the right way for the customer's experience. How do you then manage the inventory and the logistics of being in business then? There's so much that you are assessing and monitoring by the sound of things. You're on the pulse of all of that, but how do you manage that? Because it's time consuming.
It really is. If you take social media, for example, I'm across pretty much everything you can be on, but that's because I have different types of customer segments. For business partners, for event planners, I'm on LinkedIn. And that's also, my career history, and they can see a bit about me in a different light. But obviously for my younger clientele, because I mostly work with people just coming out of university, then I'm more on TikTok and Instagram, and they want fun videos and they want to be more interactive. And they like my crazy colored hair, right? And so it's adapting the same content to each of those platforms through a scheduler. So I use Loomly. I've tried a few of the others, again, different price points, but it allows me to, in one swoop, have the same content calendar, but then just slightly modify each of that content for the right platform. And that saves me a ton of time instead of like individually trying to post and customize everything. And then maybe I decide, this isn't a LinkedIn thing. This is just a fun thing to engage my audience and edutain them, right? And that's where you'd figure out those trade-offs. Is maybe it's not going to be on every channel, and that's okay too. But the scheduler allows you to quickly do that without trying to go to every single platform, log in, customize, and deal with all their, unique things.
Exactly. And I'll have to check out Limly, because I've used Hootsuite for that reason. So I always like to find another option. I love what you said before. Don't just do it for 6 months and just, like prepare, have a big weekend, go, great, I've done my social and now leave. What I'd love you to speak to that then. So obviously, it's great to be efficient and prepared, and so that you can do that, but you're then wanting to assess and monitor that, or you might want to change that, or what's your rationale by don't be too overly prepared?
Yeah, and I do this with my customers as well for their goals. So with my customers, we create something we call the syllabus for life, which is your big, life goals, career goals. What are you trying to work towards? But for many people, that gets overwhelming, just like our day-to-day business. And so, although for my business, I have those longer term goals. What do I want to do this 3 months, this 6 months, this year? I also have very short-term goals. What do I need to do this month? Which events am I in? How many events do I have per week? How much promotion do I need to do for them? And do I need to fill in with anything else because, maybe it's a holiday and I feel like having a day with the kids. and so it's finding that balance, right? And so you can have a general plan, but you start to tweak as you get closer to that proximity to now.
Yeah. Do you deliberately in your blogging and posting add in additional contacts such as referral partners, paid sponsorship, things of that nature to try and increase the the impact of those mediums?
Absolutely. And I mean, everybody does this. Look at any commercial that you watch, your favorite celebrities, your favorite musician, they are getting sponsorships from other areas. It's not just because they sang a great song and they made an album, they make a ton of money. They make money off merchandising, they make money off sponsorships, they go do events, just like all of us. And so anywhere where you can continue to have flow of cash coming in from these other areas, which doesn't take a ton of effort, then that's fantastic. If I'm going to go do an event, and they have an affiliate link where I can promote the event I'm already going to be speaking at, and I get commission back for that event. Fantastic, win-win, right? Everybody does well. The event does well, I do well, and everybody's happy. So those are the type of things I try to look for when I do stuff so that it's not another thing I need to do, but somehow optimize again with what I'm already trying to do for my business. So
brilliant. How do you then go about building and maintaining those partnerships? Partnerships with other businesses that you've. Is there an example of a couple that you've done with intent? You thought, I really need to partner up here. I need to strategically grow that relationship.
Yeah, it's really important because the thing is, sometimes people feel competition with people that are in their own niche. And I find actually the people in your own niche are your best partners. It's an ability to share audiences. It's having like-minded, work that you're doing. Everybody is going to approach things differently. And so, a lot of times people think of it as one pie that we're trying to divide in half. I try to think of it as we're all trying to make the pie bigger so we all get a bigger slice. And so when you start thinking of it that way, it really changes your approach to partnerships, and you stop thinking of everybody as a competitor and you start seeing where is the opportunity that is, again, a mutually beneficial thing for you and the partner.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you, Nikki. And I've noticed that by partnering up with Leadership Global. So Women's Biz Global is my business. I partnered up with Leadership Global. And then in that's right, you would actually go, and a few people said, why did you do that? You're kind of competitors. And I went, well, that's really interesting. Linda and Fisk and I don't believe it that way. We actually go, we're a bigger pond now, if you like. We've got more people that we serve. And those people will be attracted to either business for their own reasons. There's enough business to go around, and that's a good thing. And I've seen it, like it's been beautiful, and I've created so many beautiful new relationships because of that. And I totally believe that is possible through not just in the exact like, but particularly those complementary businesses as well. That there's just so many of them. So what sort of examples can you give of those sorts of collaborations that you might have seen in other industries that go, you know what, I watched this happen and it was really worthwhile. It was a good decision for those companies.
Yeah, I saw it both ways. And I think this is probably why I've learned the lesson. When I was working at Microsoft on the Microsoft phone, which everybody raise your Microsoft phone. Oh, wait. Okay. Why? Because it was already a very competitive market with Android and iPhone coming out. And the way that they treated competition at the time with that leadership was they smashed devices. If you had one of those devices, you were not allowed to be in the office. They only wanted you to have their device. It was really, really cutthroat and crazy. And I was just like, wait, what's going on here? Aren't we going to all try to learn? And, we'll all just see how the market grows, and everybody needs a phone now. So it's just going to be a big market. And that wasn't the way. And so I felt bad. I felt like, this isn't the way I want to do business. And so then as I started working at PayPal, then I saw, things start to transform in a very different way. Payments expanded and just the amount of ways you can take payments changed. And so there was a lot more collaboration within the industry because no one person owns everything. It would be a monopoly and they'd probably shut everybody down. So it was great to really see that collaboration to figure out how we could work with other partners like Visa, MasterCard, discover through the network, and again, find mutually beneficial ways to expand the way people can take payments that may not have credit in their countries, that may need to, be able to buy big things for their business that normally, wouldn't be facilitated there. So it's been kind of cool to see both sides of that competitive coin.
Fascinating, isn't it? I know I've just been working with one company who didn't want their people to sign up to this other organization because they had a jobs board, and they were so worried that their people might see the jobs board. And I'm like, if you've got employees who are you're so worried that they might go somewhere else, it's a cultural problem with your whole business. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like, what? Whereas you see that's right on an e-commerce store, you would have like afterpays and, even insurance companies or other things. It's like there's a package. You should be in the package if you can, if it's a sweet spot package for sure. So now you're a super busy woman doing all these things. We won't use the word busy, actually. You've got a lot of intentional action happening here. How do you then go about balancing the demands of, running a big successful business and then also just doing life? I mentioned in your intro that, you've done you love travel, you love sports, it's a juggle, and it's really important to get that balance right.
Yeah. And, I love traveling. And for me, being around people, it gives me energy. The pandemic was very difficult for me. I'm a super extrovert, and like telling me I got to be in the house all the time was really, really devastating. It was okay for a little bit because I traveled for my corporate job every 1 to 2 weeks a month, going all over the globe. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll hang out for a month or two. 2 years later, and now working from home. And working from home is difficult to make those boundaries. People just come in, kids come home from school, spouse comes in to, hang out. And so you really, especially with a home-based business, you do have to have even more boundaries. My boyfriend works a night schedule, and he works 8 days on or 8 nights on and then 6 days off. And so in order for us to accommodate that within our family, I adapted my business model to that. Now, that may not work for other entrepreneurs. They want to try to be Monday to Friday and have their weekends off. But that was something I had to make sure to learn is don't just work Monday to Friday, miss your family time, and not have that downtime and the focus time for your business. So really separating those days very clearly. And I don't take business meetings, even, it better be something really, really important. I'm going to make a lot of money for me to make that one-time compromise and make sure I'm fully focused on the family when I'm with the family, focus on my self-care when I'm doing that, and not trying to commingle the two because it just somebody or everybody ends up unhappy. So
Exactly. It's never worth it. It's never worth it. But it requires you to, one, identify what those important factors are. My family laugh, we've been married 35 years and we still have date night every Friday night. They're like, they'll ring us up sometimes or pop in. They go, sorry to disturb you on date night. But because it's been a not negotiable, right? And then now I'm a nana and I go, okay, I want to do drop off kindy or school or reading groups or things that are in your nature. And I love what you mentioned there of it doesn't have to be the 9 to 5 days. Like for me, I actually use my 7 days, but I use them around, making sure that I get time to do my because I do hiking as well, make sure I get training in. I do the important things and I create life around that. And I think that's worth always reassessing what the important things are, because, you might get to the weekend and, your peeps might be busy doing something and you're suddenly, a little bit lost. So, oh my goodness, this has just been so fantastic hearing from you. We're going to finish before we have Jane Vandermeer is going to be our next speaker. We're going to be talking fashion. So we're going to do such a shift. It's going to be amazing. You're going to love Jane, but I'm going to finish up with you, Nikki, talking about, well, where do you think you're at you've been at the coalface of this industry, and now from the work that you do now, well, where is the e-commerce industry evolving into? What do you actually see as the trends and the challenges and the new opportunities that are going to happen with e-commerce?
Yeah, there's a lot coming, and it's going to be changing very rapidly. It's really, kind of scary in some ways because of a little bit of the less control we're going to have with AI starting to develop things. But it's also really exciting that it also makes things more accessible, that before, you and I would have had to go get a developer to go try to build something unique. And it's really going to start being this converging of technology, which I'm super excited about. And I made some attempts in my new book to do is I actually started putting QR codes within the book. And so that way the book starts to become an interactive experience. I'm not waiting for you to get all the way to my course to be able to see me, to experience like who I am and why you would want to have me as a coach or a speaker. I want you to really be interactive in this book. It's a nonfiction book. Get in the mix of it, like do the activities and go forth and conquer. My book is not about like, hey, let's sit around by the pool and work on our tan. You can do that later once you finish all the exercises. But that's where I really start to see e-commerce going, is really starting to reimagine how we converge these two things. Don't just have a picture of things that you're selling on your website, have a video, have someone demonstrating how to use the product, not just you having a customer or, a paid influencer also, show how to use the product and why it's a great thing. And so starting to really reimagine how we're going to do those things is going to be, I think, that very next level. And then sky's the limit from there. But I feel like in a year from now, we're going to be in a totally different place.
I so agree. Sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine it, but I know it's going to seriously have changed because it has changed so much, even in the last 6 to 12 months. Like even now, suddenly the use of QR codes, I'm exactly the same. Now I used to go, I'll put my website, even on a social now, going, no one's going to click on that. You just put a little QR code, or, even on my, when I've got my podcast, I'll make sure that I've got my QR code on my virtual background. It's kind of like people, you got to make it also, everyone is quick. You got to make it quick, efficient, make that journey easier for someone else, even if they're out in the city and you're just, it'll be on a tram or a bus station or whatever. It's got to be that I see it, I click on it, I can do it. And that might be going to someone's website, but also might be paying for that product. I see it, I can do it. I absolutely love it. Like from a consumer perspective, I must admit, I must be an early uptaker because I'm like, yeah, bring it on, make it easier. But also I know for all of us in business, it's a real challenge. It's a challenge keeping up to speed. It also means that we can own our space, and then suddenly all these changes happen. If we don't actually keep up to speed with that, then others, our competitors will and do, and you will be left behind. So with all of it, it's it shouldn't be scary. It just means that we've constantly got to be spending time on our businesses and looking at, are we meeting our customers' needs? And oh my goodness, thank you so much for sharing your incredible knowledge with us, Nikki Green. You have been absolutely stellar as one of our speakers. So everybody, you want to connect with Nikki, go to thenikkigreen.com. You will find her on TikTok, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. She's hanging out all over the place. She has just got so much experience, as you've heard today, and that's only been a tiny little scraping of what she can share. And so definitely make contact with her. She is a total gem.